Hello, programmers! My name is Lucas McCarty, and throughout the next few weeks, I would like to introduce you to the Java programming language through a series of short tutorials. So without further ado, let's get started and learn some Java. Right here, I have a very simple Java program that doesn't really have anything in it besides a main method and a class declaration. So let's learn what those two things are and how to program Java programs. In order to program a Java program, you're going to need to have an IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and it's quite simply an application in which you write programs. So, once you have an IDE, I recommend Eclipse for aspiring programmers who are new to Java. And Eclipse is what I will be using throughout these series of tutorials. Anyways, once you have an IDE open, go ahead and create a new Java class, and then title that class whatever you want. I titled my class My Java Class, and by convention, I used the camel case naming setup, where I capitalized the first letter of each word within my name, and by convention, I also capitalized the first letter of the class name. These are just two things that programmers do for consistency's sake, and there's different conventions for different things. There might be one for class names and a different one for variable names, and we'll get to those as we work through this tutorial series. So this first line right here is called the class declaration. There's a couple things to keep in mind with this class declaration. First, this word here, public. Public declares the scope of our class. Now there can be two scopes. There can be public or private. But for now, all we need to worry about is that our class has a public scope. We'll get back to scope in a future tutorial lesson, and we'll find out what it's all about. So, here we have the word class. Class denotes that this is our class declaration, and here is, of course, the name of our class. Here we have a bracket, and here's a close bracket, and together these two brackets indicate the start and the end of our Java class. Anything within them is considered part of the class. If you're new to Java or programming altogether, you might be wondering what this is. This is something called the main method. If you have a series of tasks that you'd like to be executed, for example, if you'd like to print a series of statements or do anything of that nature, you're going to need a main method. Main methods have the following syntax: public, which once again declares the scope; static, which is something that we'll get to once again in a future tutorial once you have a bit more Java knowledge; and void, which is the return type of this method, basically saying that when I implement the main method, nothing gets returned; and main. And here is the parameter. And then we have start and a closing bracket. Anything contained within the main method, anything we put in here, will be executed. But for now, we're not going to put anything in there. We'll talk about putting stuff into the main method in a future tutorial. One last thing I'd like to talk about before the end of this video is how to comment in a program in Java. So, in order to write a comment, and for those of you wondering what exactly a comment is a written statement that a programmer puts into a program, but they don't want it to be interpreted as code. They just want it to be interpreted as a note or something for other programmers to take a look at when they are reviewing their code. So, one simple way to write a comment in Java is by using two slashes right here, and then you can type whatever you want. When the compiler runs this program, the he that I just typed will not be accepted as code. In fact, it will just be ignored. So this wouldn't be destructive to our code. If I wanted to write a comment that spans multiple lines, I would use a slash and an asterisk, and the IDE has auto formatted this for me, but in order to close this multi-line comment, I would need another asterisk and then another slash. And so now what I can do is I can type comments across multiple lines. So I could type, hello, my name is Lucas. And none of these lines would be interpreted as code. Now, typically a use for this is to either explain code, or at the start of a program, a programmer might want to denote that they were the one responsible for the creation of a specific class. So they might write something like author McCarty, and something like the date that the program was created, and so forth. So now we have a fundamental understanding of what exactly a class is, what the main method is, and how to write comments. Next week, I hope that we can take a look at variables and print statements. Stay tuned. See ya.